ARIUS SORBONNE, Snake Staff Systems, the critical role of tourniquets for safety and preparedness. In this episode, I discuss the critical role of tourniquets in emergencies with my guest, ARIUS SORBONNE, co-founder of Snake Staff Systems, along with his amazing wife, Jessica. ARIUS explains the innovative design and functionality of the tourniquet, emphasizing its portability and effectiveness, especially for children. We stress the significance of emergency preparedness and advocate for carrying tourniquets as part of everyday safety care to handle unexpected injuries. Key features of the Snake Staff Systems Tourniquet, as seen on the Shawn Ryan Show and featured with Dom Raso of Dynamis Alliance. Compact design. The tourniquet reduces the overall profile by about 65% by eliminating the sleeve found in traditional models, making it more portable and user-friendly. Suitable for both children, babies, pets, and adults. Most aren't. 1-inch webbing. The core component responsible for constricting blood flow is a 1-inch piece of webbing, which has been effective in saving lives for years. Carabiner Lock. This feature enhances reliability during patient transport, addressing a common issue with other tourniquets that can become dislodged. ARIUS's family experience. ARIUS shared a personal story about a friend who had to supply a tourniquet to his child after a trampoline accident. This real-life example underscores the necessity of having such equipment on hand. Practical skills for kids. We touched on the importance of teaching first aid skills to children. Familiarity with medical supplies can empower kids to act confidently in emergencies. Everyday carry, EDC. Many people are now including tourniquets in their EDC, which can be a game changer in emergencies. Having essential medical supplies on hand can significantly increase survival chances. What first aid do you EDC? Now, beyond his work with Snake Staff Systems, ARIUS collaborates closely with a range of specialized units, including special forces and SWAT teams. His expertise in tactical medical equipment and emergency response protocols makes him a valuable asset to these high-stakes environments. By working with these elite groups, ARIUS ensures that the tourniquets and other medical tools developed by Snake Staff Systems meet the rigorous demands of field operations. His partnerships with these units also provide critical feedback that drives continuous improvement and innovation in their products, ultimately enhancing the safety and effectiveness of first responders and military personnel. Additionally, ARIUS delved into the craftsmanship behind the custom firearms he manufactures, detailing the precision engineering and rigorous testing each gun undergoes to ensure reliability and safety. He shares insights into the various models they produce, tailored for different needs, from personal defense to professional use, and underscores the importance of responsible gun ownership and proper training. ARIUS notes that the messaging around self-defense and medical preparedness can often be polarizing, with some people dismissing the need for such knowledge. However, he believes that framing the conversation around safety and preparedness can help bridge the gap between differing viewpoints. By focusing on universal values like protecting loved ones, they can encourage more people to engage with the concepts of self-defense and emergency medical training. Final thoughts. This episode is a powerful reminder of the importance of being prepared for emergencies. ARIUS and I shared a mutual understanding of the necessity of carrying reliable medical equipment and being proactive about personal safety. I encourage you to listen to the full episode and consider investing in a quality tourniquet for your safety and the safety of your loved ones. You can find ARIUS at www.snakestaffsystems.com/video. The link is below in the show notes, and on Instagram.com/snakestaff_systems and snakestaff_safety, and the links are in the show notes below. Thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator, subject matter expert from HowNotToDieGuy.com. And you're listening to my Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast, sponsored by State, the ultimate daily formula for optimum hormone health, stress management, energy, and performance. 100% natural and clinically proven ingredients. Provides everything you need to raise your game in a convenient gut-friendly capsule. And my new sponsor, Michael Mason of the Mason Survival Protocol. Links for my former shows are in the show notes below. Thanks for watching. And we're live. Welcome to the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast. Welcome to my guest this morning over here in Australia and the other side of the world in USA, ARIUS SORBONNE. Great to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor.
Oh, mate, just so good to finally connect. Thank you to Jessica, your CEO. I saw of Snake Staff Systems for connecting us.
Yeah, wife and CEO. So
I saw the title. I was like, okay, you're the owner, but she's the boss.
yeah, she's the boss for sure.
Hey, look, really quickly for the listeners and the viewers, tourniquets. I said just before we hit record, I interview the best people in the world at what they do, and I believe that you've made the best tourniquet in the world. I'm gonna contextualize that soon. But before this,
Oh
they've
shit.
heard the show notes, they've heard the intro to you. You know, your tourniquet, I think, is the best in the world because you actually will carry it. It's no good having something you don't actually have. No good getting 10 pieces of advice if you don't take any of them. So your tourniquet from Snake Staff Systems is a game changer. What made you decide to make that?
That's a great question. My business partner and Ben and I, we started three companies together. He came to me and he was like, "Hey man, like the cat tourniquet, it's great. It's saved a ton of lives. We will never dog on cat because like we admire them quite a bit, and we know those guys. However, it's really hard to carry on your person. It just is. And so in the gun industry, we're all about having different tools for different jobs, right? You don't have just one gun. You've got your 365 for everyday carry. You got a 320 for outside the waistband or a Glock or whatever. And then you got your rifle and sniper rifle. I mean, there's just different tools for different jobs, right? It's pretty comprehensive. But in the tourniquet world, we don't really have that. We just have cat. It's
Yeah,
just kind of this size and we're cool with it. And there's some other great tourniquets out there, a soft T. But we realized that we could basically reduce the overall profile by about 65%
yeah.
if we got rid of this sleeve right here. So if you guys have ever cut open a cat, I wouldn't recommend cutting open your cat. Keep that good. If you have it like an Amazon Chinese cat, cut that one open so you don't use it. Anyway, so if you cut that open, the thing that's actually doing the constricting is a 1 inch piece of webbing inside of here. This is just a sleeve with a Velcro on it. And so actually 1 inch tourniquets have been saving lives for a freaking long time. Who knows how many lives cat has saved. So we realized, hey, if we can just minimize that a little bit and throw some, new twists into it, keep the same tourniquets almost have a manual of arms. You want to like everyone knows how to use a windlass tourniquet. Some of the new ones out there, people just are like, what the hell do I do with this? And you
Yeah,
don't want to
yeah.
have that experience the first time you're putting a tourniquet on someone, a loved one, or yourself. You want to know exactly what to do. So the windlass tourniquet has been around forever, long before cat even. But something novel that we did is we have a carabiner lock right here.
Yep,
So I don't know if you can see that very well, but it locks in this way instead of a piece of Velcro.
exactly.
So our thought behind that is, unfortunately, during patient transport, windlasses get bumped and moved around quite a bit. And so we're like, that's kind of where our patent lies, is on that carabiner system, and on some other aspects. But it's been a journey. Like, we didn't come from the medical world. We come from an engineering standpoint, and we saw something that could be um, improved upon from a size standpoint. Yeah.
And the size, what got my attention was the same size as a pistol magazine, and can
Yeah.
fit in a pocket and so on. It's brilliant. You said something there, get your cheap a Chinese one from Amazon and cut that up. Please tell the listeners and viewers, and I touched on China one time in a show, I think. I went to pull it back, but I definitely touched on it. Why should they not use one from China? What's wrong with that?
Use anything but a Chinese tourniquet. If you see a tourniquet online that's selling for like dramatically different prices than a cat or our tourniquet or an American made tourniquet, like you're seeing something for $10 or like even just like $18, those tourniquets will have a windlass that is not reinforced glass, nylon, um, Zytel or whatever you're using. So the problem with that is they will break. You're actually putting a tremendous amount of power and pressure onto that windlass when you're cranking it down to save someone's life. And we have heard story after story of guys, and this is sad, even cops, they're procurement guys trying to save, you know, the boys some money, right? So they're like, okay, well, let's get these cats um, on Amazon, and they will snap on them. The tourniquet's useless now.
Yep.
So some of our use cases, some of the people who have used our tourniquets this year to save lives started actually like a couple of them. The cops were like, this was their personal tourniquet, and they had a fake cat, break on them, threw it off, and then put our tourniquet on, and it held.
Wow.
So tourniquets are not something you skimp on. It's funny, like people are funny about tourniquets. They're like, well, I want to save $5, but like we don't do that with guns, really. Some people do, but you don't buy a high point, you buy a fucking Glock. And um, it's the same thing with a life. This is truly a life-saving device. So honestly, as a civilian, probably I'd be willing to bet in Australia as well as the US, you're more likely to use this thing than your concealed carry gun. I don't know if you guys, can you concealed carry over there?
No, no. And you say you guys because I'm a Kiwi in Australia, so there's a bit of banter goes on there with us. But no,
I'm
they
sorry.
you, you can't carry here. But you are so right, and I've actually touched on this. I think I've done a couple of videos with How Not to Die guy. Um, I've pulled my trauma kit out now. Just last week was 11 times, and I've never pulled any tools in air quotes out of my vehicle if I was in trouble. I've always pulled the trauma kit out. And you touched on
Yeah.
something else there. You know, you don't want to try and figure out how to use a tourniquet in the heat of the moment.
No.
Yes, as a military guy, I used tourniquets in training, and I knew exactly how to do that. I didn't stress out. You just did what you were trained to do. But I got to say, Arius, when it comes to your little one and they get injured, you just start running around in circles a little bit. So you're going to default to the lowest level of training. And I think as a mum, as a dad, as a grandparent who will look after kids more, um, really important to actually know how to use the things. So yeah, it's super important to know what you're doing as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the kids, honestly. I have 3 kids and another one on the way. Jess and I just found out about the week before SHOT Show, so
Oh
we're excited
wow.
about that. Um, but when we made this, we realized there are a lot of tourniquets that actually do not work with kids. People don't know that. Most, including the cat, will not go down to a small enough diameter to occlude, with like a very small limb. Even like teenagers, some of their, if you think about like a teenage girl, they have really, usually you're putting a high on the arm, and I think its limit is around 5 inches. Don't quote me on that. Whereas ours is about 1 inch. So you can put it on dogs, canines, it works well on, but also kids. And I don't know, we've heard from people like, well, dude, that'll never like, my kid's never going to have like a traumatic injury like that. Why do I need a tourniquet for a kid?
Oh,
You don't. You need tourniquet for everybody, but for a kid. I don't know if you've ever had Slade Couture on. He's a former Gold Squadron dude. He's a good buddy of ours. Uh, he's obviously put tourniquets on in the field on his buddies, but he came home once he was medically retired, and he had to put a tourniquet on his kid, a young
oh,
child, because he jumped off the trampoline, skewered himself on a fence.
oh,
And
wow.
we don't think that, but like you can bleed out from some of these things. Compound fractures
Yep,
often nick moral arteries.
yep.
There's an amazing video online of a guy just mountain biking, not a huge jump, just kind of goes over a roller and gets a compound fracture, nicks his femoral, and he almost bleeds out in the space of like a minute, 2 minutes.
Wow.
Luckily, his friends were able to save him and put a lot of direct pressure. Can't remember if there was a tourniquet involved, but accidents happen more than you would think, honestly.
They they really do. And literally, my job as a firefighter, we see the funkiest stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what I was really pleased to see is tourniquets brought into our med kits on the fire truck about a year ago, which was great. I don't agree with the one they bought, and I'm going to have to train up to use it because you got to put the thing together and do the thing. But at least they're there. But yeah, accidents, and we're not just talking about traumatic events like a gunshot, a sucking chest wound, all these sort of things. What I saw was Dr. Dan Pronk, a special forces doctor here who was also a guest on the show. He had a video up a while back, and it was a motorcycle rider, and he had a little fall, and he had an arterial spurt out of the tip of his finger that needed a tourniquet. Yeah, so
Really?
we got arteries through the fingers, and again, I knew that it's difference between knowing and seeing and actually being in it. We all know that there's arteries through. That's common sense, but actually seeing it was spurting out, and the guy needed a tourniquet. So, motorbike riders, every motorbike rider should carry one for themselves or their mate. And as special forces, we carry them for ourselves.
Yep. I think every motorcycle rider definitely needs a tourniquet. Like it should be like one of the main things in their saddlebag, whatever you're rocking. Like it needs to be on you. Honestly, it should be on your vest or your jacket that you rock. Man, I've seen unfortunately quite a few severed limbs and stuff from hitting. You wouldn't think, but I mean, you're even going like 30 to 40 to 50. Like if you hit a stop sign or something and you're sliding off the road, man, that'll just, your leg's gone. We actually had a really interesting, we're starting to work with a very interesting couple here in Utah that she got into a pedestrian vehicle accident where she was wedged between two cars.
Oh, wow.
And instantly lost one. The guy was reversing. He wasn't, I mean, you can only reverse so fast, I'm assuming. But still caused that immense amount of trauma. And so she lost that leg, ended up having to amputate the other leg. And tourniquets saved her life. For sure, she would have bled out. She was actually right next to the hospital, and she still would have bled out if that wouldn't have happened. And they were actually improvised tourniquets, which we don't suggest. Usually they do not work. This one saved her life because it was able to stop the bleeding in time for EMS to get there.
Yep.
Put on tourniquets. But we're working with her because we're trying to, she has a big initiative to help schools here in America and the United States. America and Utah in particular, to get tourniquets because it's important for kids. And unfortunately, school shootings happen, all this stuff happens. And like, there should be at least like 2 tourniquets for every child in every school. Like it should just be part of the classroom. Yeah, it's kind of interesting stuff, but
I'm glad
honestly, your vehicle is the dangerous thing you do. Like I brought up that story because like driving is the most dangerous thing you do. You need to have tourniquets in your car, and everybody needs to know how to use them.
I agree, and also where to keep things. I've got 2 med kits. The big trauma kit is in the car because I always know where my car is, which is an interesting thing. It's either out in the driveway or it's where you parked it. So you could probably get access to it pretty well, especially if you're at home. And I've got one at home, but the big trauma kit's in the car. But yeah, you come across accidents or you're in them yourself. I'm really glad you brought up the kids again. And it's great that you touched on, the other tourniquets out there may not actually go around a small child's limb. I was a police officer before I was a cop here, and I remember you said a teenage girl. She was about 18, and she was getting arrested. She was kicking off and tiny limbs, and these, how a kid is like just like a squid, just wrestling and goes all over the place. This cop, I remember it was me now. I put my rigid handcuff on her, and she just pulled her whole hand out. The rigid handcuff, the Hyatt, clicked on, and she just went, what just happened? It didn't compute in my head. The other cop who wasn't a partner, but he was next to me, was backup of some kind. He put on, he had a different model of handcuffs. He had the chain handcuffs, and they went on right to the last one. But yeah, great example there. I've seen it in real life. You know about it, and that just, again, that's why you're here. I want to talk about that tourniquet, that can save lives more than others, because A, you're going to carry it, and B, now it's going to work for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, there is a video floating around on YouTube of it's body cam footage of a cop trying to apply a, uh full size cat tourniquet to I'm going to say she was probably 4 or 5 year old. She was bleeding out, and he tries to crank down on it. It's just too big to actually constrict. And so he ends up just having to hold her arm and just try to put direct pressure on and try to squeeze the arm into occlusion, which is crazy. Um, Maybe you can do that till EMS arrives, maybe, but people don't realize how hard that is to do for a long period of time. You're also not moving that patient while that's happening. Like, uh, tourniquets really hurt. Like I'm assuming you've trained with them before.
Yeah,
You kind of know
yeah,
what they feel.
yeah.
And it's because they're squeezing that tight. It's difficult to put that amount of pressure with your bare hands on any limb. So, yeah, I don't know. I love that it works for kids, man. It's a big part of what we do. Hearing, we have a on our website. If you go check out um, our use cases, we put that up so people can start, gathering data and start looking at, how has it actually been used, and most of them are police reports. Um, and it's been cool to see some people that weren't necessarily in firefighting or EMS or a cop use these tourniquets because small enough to carry on
Yeah.
their person. And usually they have something to say, like writing in, like, man, I never carried a tourniquet before, and I actually carried this one, and I'm so glad I had it on me because I never thought this was going to happen. Um, and a lot of workplace accidents, a lot of, you know, if you're a woodworker, if you're working around saws, man, that stuff can go wrong real fast.
Yeah, gosh.
Uh, Tree services, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's because we're here to help others, Arius, and I can see you're humble, because you said at the start, cat are just down the road from you guys, and you really like the cat tourniquet. Let's Neither of us are doctors, so we'll just preface this question, or this part of it, with that. Um, if someone did find themselves in that situation, the cop, because I was running through in my head as you said it, and he's like tried to crank down on that, and the diameter's not right. I was thinking, could you compact, say, some clothing around that limb and make the diameter wider, and possibly use that tourniquet?
Oh, that's interesting. Possibly. I'm
Yeah.
not going to say definitively
I'm
whether or not
I'm
that
I'm
can work.
thinking, because people listening to
But
that
we'll
might
see.
go, well, I've only got a cat, so what do I do?
Right. Um, there are some other tourniquets on the market too that work. Like, I don't have a problem like telling other people about our competitors, honestly, as long as they're not Chinese, because that'll get you killed. Uh, but there are some. I don't love this tourniquet, but the SWAT T can go to a really small diameter. The Rats tourniquet can. There's a couple other options out there for you. Um, and then obviously you can always use improvised tourniquets, although I say that with some hesitancy. We know one of the doctors who he's a trauma surgeon that was there on the day of the Boston bombing. I don't know if you're familiar with that
Yep.
incident. A lot of extremely uh, horrific injuries, and they only had, I believe, one actual tourniquet. Out of all those people, um, they only applied one actual tourniquet and applied, I want to say like 19 or something. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I'd have to check, but improvised tourniquets, shoelaces, all this stuff. And when they did an after action report on it, they're essentially saying, like, oh, wow, none of these improvised tourniquets actually occluded blood like they needed to. So one of those individuals got the care that they needed. It's better than nothing. You should
Yeah.
absolutely try to make an improvised tourniquet. However, you should use a real tourniquet. You should have one on you. Don't be relying on your belt. Belts do not work well. Have a tourniquet on you. I don't care what brand it is. Have it in your car, at home, at the workplace.
Absolutely. I love that. You talked about improvised tourniquets. There's an SAS operator. It wasn't even called an operator back then because it was back in, I think this was in Malaya. He was hunted by the enemy there, and he got shot through the leg. Managed to crawl
Sure.
away into the dirt, and he wrapped a sweat rag around his leg and got his commando knife through it, cranked that up himself. So there's not many people in the world that can do these things, and that's why SF guys are that way. Cranked up himself and had that on for 3 days. Jammed himself full of morphine, and then
Really?
yes, straight up. And then the helos come in and found him. They put a tracking team on from. He was just hiding in the dirt, in the leaves, and the enemy walking by him while he had this improvised tourniquet on his leg. But the pain that he must have had in there, and it was just enough to staunch it. So yeah,
Hey,
it's
that's awesome though. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. There's a big misnomer um, in the civilian world still. Hey, you can't leave a tourniquet on for a long time. You're going to lose the leg. I don't know if that gentleman ended up losing, that operator ended up losing his leg or not. Um, but there was actually, like, I believe last year or 2 years ago, um, in CENTCOM, I want to say there was a tourniquet applied and they did not get to a higher level of care for like 72 hours, which
wow.
is extremely impressive. The soldier did not lose his limb. Um, and that sucks that there's been this, honestly, since like the 60s and 70s, like people weren't putting on tourniquets during Vietnam because they were like, oh my gosh, you might as well write that limb off. And not the case at all. Civilians still kind of think that it's not the case. Put a tourniquet on. Um, and it's at the end of the day, like if you have to leave that on for a week or whatever, like 3 days is crazy to get to a higher level of care. But I'd rather still lose a limb than die. So always err on the side of putting the tourniquet on. You don't want to put a tourniquet on for mild bleeding for sure. But that shouldn't be part of your consideration. Like he's going to lose the leg automatically.
No, and we don't think it when we go to do first aid at someone else. We're there to save their life, stop that bleed, and to sort of tie this in a bow. I'll never forget. I can't mention her name, but the doctor that was in the medical doctor for New Zealand SAS, when she was
Yeah.
teaching us, it was blood on the ground. If there's blood on the ground, you stop that straight away. So we'd roll up to an operator, stand on his armpit, stand on his groin, win the fight, and then stop that blood from getting out, because no good's doing CPR when that hose is running. So we need to stop that straight away.
I'm glad you brought up win the fight. That is something that we're trying to implement in some of our education towards civilians too. I mean, it might be an actual fight where you have to eliminate that threat if you're able to, but also just being situationally aware. Like, okay, there's a car accident here. Am I going to apply the tourniquet on this guy on the side of the road where I actually have a large chance of getting injured myself? You can't help
Exactly.
someone if you're injured. Get to a safe location. Everything that do you guys have S March over there? Did you learn
Yeah, we
that
started to
acronym?
started to bring that in a little bit. They still work on Doctors ABC.
Yep.
That's the first one, of course, but alongside that is the March protocol, and that's sort of starting to come into effect more.
Good. Yeah. I mean, that honestly can be used. I mean, we try to dumb that down and take the military terms out and take some of the nomenclature, and shit out of that. So just the regular soccer mom can use S
Yeah.
March, but that is, I think, the best method. And we try to teach civilians, some of that acronym because it works really well. So don't reinvent the wheel, I guess.
Exactly. And you talked about soccer mums. The last thing I want to touch on with the Snake Staff Systems Tourniquet is you've got a bunch of carry options with it as well. I thought that was brilliant because what do you do when you get a cat two? And I've carried a cat two for, gosh, I'm doing some maths, a long time, at least 15 years. But it's
Yeah.
awkward. So you've got some carry systems there as well, right?
Yeah, we do. Um, so we have this. This is called the snake skin. It's a really simple sleeve design. You can use this for a carabiner if you want to attach it to a backpack. But then this system allows you. It's a piece of Tegris. We have discrete carry clips, which I think are the best clips on the market
Yep.
for IWB holsters. and you put that on here, and you can easily conceal it inside the waistband. You can loop a belt underneath this part if you want to be OWB. But it's pretty easy to stuff it in there and then just yank it out immediately. This one's actually, some people don't know this, but we have two sizes of tourniquets.
Yeah,
one is the
okay.
1 inch. We followed basically all the protocols that the DoD tourniquet working group came out with, where so TCCC a lot of people don't understand this too. They're always like, well, is a TCCC certified? They haven't actually met about tourniquets since 2019. So anything that's newer than that, they might never actually meet again, because there's so many tourniquets out on the market. We've been told that they're just saying, we'll make sure it's as good as the CAT or to the standard. So they referred us to the DoD tourniquet working group requirements, and that's how we built it to those requirements, essentially. We're actually one of the only tourniquets that have instructions right on the label.
Yeah.
So if you are freaking out and you are in shock and you like cannot figure out what to do, you've never applied a tourniquet before, maybe this is your wife having to apply a tourniquet to you, you can easily do that. There's actually a what is this called? What am I can't think
QR
of this.
code, is it?
QR code. Cheese, dude. I invented that. Probably no. Not the QR code on a tourniquet. That QR code allows you to go to a quick video. It's an 18 Delta, former Green Beret, who's telling you how to walk through it in, very simple terms. This is what you need to do. So it's kind of a cool little add-on to our tourniquet.
Yeah, for sure. And first aid wise, I've got to say, it's always going to be a shock. This is for the listeners, for the viewers. It's always going to be a surprise. When I put on a uniform, when you go to the range, I know there's something coming. I'm a bit more prepared. I'm a bit more switched on.
Yes.
But you're driving along your car. I was coming back from the markets this morning to get back for this show, and I literally went, I drove past a place where we'd had a car accident, and my boy in that car accident, when it was another vehicle involved, not with us. He sat in the car. He watched that happen. He was about 7 years old. It's a hell of a surprise. When I was driving past that, quickly I had some nodes in my brain go, oh no, what happens if right now I've got 15 minutes to get back if there's an accident here? Because there was. It's always a surprise. And unless you're at work, you are going to flip out a little bit. So to have the instructions there, you've got to dumb it down. I love that you got to there, and I'm going to reinforce that it's normal to be surprised for the listeners. It's normal to freak out. But if you have a level of training, or if you've even just listened to ARIUS there saying you need a windlass and you've got some crazy improvised tourniquet, great, that you're going to do better. But you've got to, you won't figure it out. You'll only recall what you've done or seen.
Yeah, and that's why education is so important. Like, we're really trying to push, okay, you need to have done this 1 time, 2 times, whatever. You should do it as much as you can, but you should, if you've done that and put any kinds of reps in, that's going to help during that moment. Just be proficient and let some of your motor skills kind of like take over. Lose fine motor skills, but if you have an idea of what a tourniquet is and how it works beforehand, man, you're going to be set up for success compared to someone who's never seen a tourniquet. And it is pretty shocking to see how many people still don't know what a tourniquet is, never heard of it before. And it's something we got to change here in America and around the world.
I agree. I love that you said, maybe never seen it before or don't know what it is. Again, I can only harken back to me being a parent. My job is to teach my boy things. And I had a first aid kit from all different things. Who are these guys that sent it over? A great first aid kit people in America. I'll try and remember the name. But I said, oh, this is our first aid kit for home. And we sat down and he pulled out everything, and he's learning to read properly. So he's learning each thing. He learned each one of them, and we put it back together. the next day, we're at the skate park. He collides with a kid and rides over the kid's leg. Not a big deal. The kid had a little scratch on his leg, and a little scratch on his his finger. But Seb had we bought the first aid kit to the skate park. I said, Seb, go get it. And Seb was pulling it out, and it wasn't, what the hell is all this stuff? The day before, he'd actually read each thing, and I thought,
Yeah.
you've literally taught this, let's say, monkey see, monkey do. You've taught this kid first aid, and it's not so much of a shock. It's actually that's comfortable. So I was watching him be comfortable with what was in that first aid kit, and maybe knowing a bit of more how to help someone.
Dude, that's awesome. You're a good dad. I wish more parents would do that. Like my kids obviously know how to use a tourniquet. My 16-month-old daughter actually can say tourniquet, which is pretty cute. It's like one of the first words she said. But yeah, it's really important to understand not just tourniquets. Like, man, like I wish more people carried chest seals. I wish more people understood how to pack a wound. And I just think it's something that you can teach a child that's going to pay dividends, whether they're saving their own life one day or saving, someone else. It's such an important skill to teach your kids. Don't be a bad parent. Like, teach your kids how to just know their way around a first aid kit. It reminded me the other day, Dom Raso. I don't know if you know who Dom is, but he was on the Shawn Ryan podcast, and he pulled out our tourniquet, which we had no idea he was going to do. And he mentioned, hey, like, he's a family man, and he carries that tourniquet because it works really well on kids. So he's prepared, and it's something he can EDC. And if someone like that, who has experienced quite a bit of shit in their lives, takes tourniquets seriously, takes carrying one on them every day very seriously, I think we all should humble ourselves and listen to those individuals, people like, Dom, who have learned from experience, putting it on their buddies, or people like Slade, who had to put it on this kid, even though he's at home after he retired. It's interesting stuff.
Well, I did watch Dom on the Shawn Ryan Show, and the whole time for the first 15 minutes we were talking, I was actually envisaging Dom's small first aid kit. It's a different name, but he's got an EDC first aid kit that can slip in your back pocket of your jeans. I mean, none of mine can do that.
It's a Dynamis Alliance first aid kit. It's a really good one.
And that's the reason I want you on this show, because I've got literally 4 tourniquets, and none of them are ever on me, ever. And I'm saying hand on heart, they're not physically on me, because only when I'm at the fire station, maybe I'll carry one on my belt. That's not good enough. I need to have one that I can carry, and that's the point I wanted to get for the listeners. You can carry these things in your jeans pockets. They're tiny and in the handbag, and that's definitely the way to go. So I want to congratulate you on what you've done, because you've brought it to the mainstream that we can actually use that.
Yeah, what we're actually trying to convince guys to, I mean, a lot of guys are appendix carrying now here in the States. It's just more comfortable. It conceals a little bit better in a lot of regards. And most of them have spare mag caddies. And like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, this is specifically designed to work inside 9mm mag holders. And so we tell people, like, please put this in your spare caddy. You're way more likely to use this than your gun in the first place. Have this on you, because then that goes wherever you go if you're used to carrying.
Yeah, love that. Really do. It is going to be part of my EDC. Well, let's touch on that. We'll do EDC for you, and then I'm going to go into, you're not just the creator of this awesome tourniquets from Snake Staff Systems. We're going to go into the other cool things that you do that I was unaware of. I ask just about everybody that's in the tactical field, and not all. I mean, the last person I had on was the All Blacks coach. He's 65 years old. He's not doing EDC. But what's your EDC when you roll out of the house, ARIUS?
Right now, I'm using this system right here. So I've got this in my pants. This has actually been only revealed to the world in SHOT Show since SHOT Show.
Oh wow! So I've got the exclusive.
Yeah. No, I think it's pretty exciting. So this is the Raider. You know, our other company, we have been making these 320 systems for the military's M17. You know, pistol. It's basically a chassis. If you think of it, kind of like a Accuracy Arms or Accuracy International chassis, where you put a Remington 700 in it. The same concept. You're just putting a pistol in it.
So that's a pistol going inside that chassis.
Exactly, it's a pistol. The chassis itself is not serialized. You can put it in there in about, like, I don't know, 20 seconds. You're good to go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. If you got an M17 lying around, we realized it's a great backpack gun, great in the car, but we wanted something that was truly concealable inside the waistband. You pull it out, it automatically flips out. You're good to go. You're ready.
Wow.
So this guy actually has a 6-inch barrel on it. It is tiny though. I wish I had open up the safe and show you. In comparison to like a Glock 34, it's about that size. So it is really, really small and compact. We talked about this before we started recording, but fighting unfair.
Yeah.
If you're fighting for your life, we're a big proponent of you should be cheating, and you should do everything to win that fight. America does that. Most of our allies do that. We use night vision. We use CAS. We have all these things that, from a from a third party view, it seems like we are cheating, and that's because we are. We are doing everything we can to outmatch and overmatch our enemies. And so, if you think about rifles, shit, man, we're like, compare us to Russia or whatever, like we're crushing it on the technology we have on our rifles. It's always, we don't sit on our laurels. Look how the M16 has evolved.
Yeah.
All the way up to like where we're at right now. To Mark 18s 10 years ago to, URGIs, like, man, we made a lot of improvements. Russia has kind of gone the opposite way. Like, yet don't put anything on my rifle, which is stupid. How's that going for him? Not well. So same thing with pistols, but we haven't really worked on pistols in America in a while. Like something that's truly concealable on your person. The bad guys have pistols, good guys have pistols. Cops are kind of going against, bad guys that have Glocks too. And they should be overmatching. So our whole idea is to have a shoulderable sidearm. So something you can run a lot faster, more accurately. You've got that third point of contact. So I'm able to just control the weapon much more effectively. I can take longer shots.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about taking a 100-yard shot with this, like, at all. Whereas like with a pistol, like, I'm not a great shot, so I'd be like, shit, in a real situation, that's a scary thing to do.
Especially if you are in a real situation, you've got to be accountable for every round, and spraying and praying is a bad idea. Question on that specifically, you obviously revealed it, shot showing it, just seeing it here. 20 meters with a SIG P226, our role was to headshot with that, headshot with a P226. That's what I'd be comfortable with. Push me out to 50 meters, I would be lucky to hit the target. I'm recalling meters, so I'm not sure about the conversion. What would you be comfortable with shooting that?
I'm comfortable shooting out, 50 to 100.
Wow.
But that's easy with something like this. As soon as you're shouldering something, all of a sudden it feels a lot more like a rifle. So you're not worried about it. Obviously, you're going to have disadvantages with 9mm. We're actually working on some stuff with that to create some faster 9mm.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. But the whole idea is to outmatch your opponent with this system. People initially are like, well, it must be just super heavy. There's got to be a lot of downsides to the system. It's actually with 2 mags, a red dot on it, and a light. Not full mags, but in this configuration, essentially, it's lighter than a 1911. Very easy to carry on your person. We made the holster so it is both IWB and OWB. So this works with Safariland. I'm not sure if you guys are rocking those holsters down there as cops, but that's pretty much the standard here in the United States is Safariland holsters, along with the military too. So you can just clip that on. There's kind of a quick release system that they do So if you want to just be rocking your pistol most of the time and you're going into a hairy situation, I would be rocking this.
That's
Um,
intriguing. You mentioned police. So I'm thinking as a cop,
yeah,
you know, instead of having to go and get your long gun because the situation changes so rapidly, would you be looking at taking that to law enforcement around USA?
that's one of our main goals. School resource officers. You don't have
Yeah.
an excuse like I had to go back to my rifle. No, you've got this on you because it looks like a pistol. We have found, well, that's on your hip. It's not as intimidating as having a cop with a rifle in a school,
Yep.
right? The teachers, principals don't like that. Whereas this is like they probably have no idea that it's going to spring out like this,
And
they're able
let's
to
be
like
real with schools. You know, you're rolling into a classroom, sure, 10 meters, but you roll out, the hallway might be 100 meters. And you want to get the
exactly.
bad guy and protect all your people. So yeah, that just makes sense.
It does. One of the things we wanted to have happen was it to be we didn't create the side folder, that's been around forever, but we wanted it to come out automatically as soon as you draw it. And so that's an economy of movement thing, less things that you have to do to get on the shot.
Yep.
On your first shot. We also just wanted to make sure that you had more rounds than your opponent. So this is a cool system. It's called the speed reload system. You've got mags up here. It's obviously feeding from this back mag, but if I run dry, I'm simply going to press this button. It's kind of hard. I want to flag myself, but you press a button behind here that drops your empty mag. You're immediately in, and then you can start firing again.
Wow. Yeah.
So, pretty cool system. Yeah, we're developing some extended mags, so you should be able to keep you should have 50 rounds on your gun essentially. So kind of like a P90 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, it always interests me when guys, it is always guys from an engineering background go and look at a problem because you guys look at something so differently and it's just pure logic. It's like Spock, you know, what you said with the tourniquet, you know, it's got to fit in that 9mm mag holder. It only need the 1 inch because that other stuff's superfluous and so on. But yeah, just the engineering background is obviously shown through. Finishing off your EDC, that's what you carry as a weapon. Again, you're rolling out of the house. What do you have on you that is useful?
I should have it on me right now, but I've been at the desk all day.
Yeah.
But this is the Northman.
Oh, the Northman. Yeah,
So
Jack Carr talks about that in his books, right?
Bill Rapier. Oh, exactly, man. Bill Rapier's a friend. He helped us with this other product I'm about to show you, but I love this blade. I think he got it right. As you can see, it's fairly wide for a fixed blade.
Yeah.
I think that's important because if you're going for timers and switches, you have a higher percentage the wider the blade is. So I don't know. I really like it. I like the pretty small grip. It keeps me like choked up fairly well. And he's just a quality dude. If you ever get a chance to take some training from Bill, you should definitely do that. That's AMTAC training here in the United States. Besides that, I usually have a light on me, on my button. I wish Ben was here. He's my business partner. He's like known for like carrying like 20 pounds of shit on him at all times. It's pretty funny. I'm definitely like amateur hour compared to him. He literally will have, obviously I have a tourniquet, but he'll have quite a bit of interesting tools on him at all times. He sometimes carries like 3 to 4 knives. It's funny, but I'd give him shit for it, but it's cool stuff.
Pat McNamara, for those that don't know, former Delta Force guy. Oh, great dude. He's got a saying, never miss out on the opportunity to be Batman.
I like that. That's good.
And I felt like that the other day. I felt like that the other day with this first aid kit. This kid's crying and his dad's there, and immediately I know I can fix this up. And the dad had nothing, and we had that thing, and it made us feel good. But yeah, you gotta. I had a note here. Better.
I said that dad probably felt like shit. You come in and just
Yeah, I don't want to be in a place where I have to rely on someone else.
nope, nope. Yeah, and it's all about redundancies. Having stuff on your person, having stuff in the car, in the vehicle that you can fight to, or you can get a higher level of care with you, like a big IFAC. That's what I like about Dom's kit. We have something kind of similar, but you've got a first aid kit that fits in your pocket, and then you can either fight your way to the car or whatever, or get to a car, and then you've got everything else that you need. It's the same thing with tourniquets. Awesome. If you're rocking cats in your, or soft tees in your car, keep them. Like, you shouldn't get rid of those. Like, maybe just have a smaller tourniquet option available on your person until you can get there. Same thing with this. This is not the perfect weapon. It's not. Like, there's disadvantages to it. This is great to have on you, and it conceals really well. It does not print, which is kind of shocking.
Yeah.
But fight your way to your AR if you can, because an 11.5, 12.5, whatever you're using is going to be much more effective. And so just different tools for different jobs. I keep, I don't know, harping on that, but that's what we believe in.
I agree. Again, translating things to this environment here in Australia, I never go running without a field dressing because of snakes. Always run to the field dressing because of snake, and I've actually I've not used it for a snake. I've used it because I got caught short and had to use it for some toilet action.
Oh, very absorbent.
Yeah, but you know, that tourniquet, like yeah. Look, it's so cool to be able to have that stuff. For my ADC is it was a I talked about Chris Stroop from Stroop Knives. He's got a great tool, a pry bar tool, much like Dom Raso's combat flathead, that you're probably aware of as well. And I was lucky enough to have Daniel Winkle on the show. Yeah, yeah. Well, Jack Carr's the one I've got to slot into 2024 as well. But that thing there has had multiple uses straight away over a knife that may be illegal to carry in some places. So I love that you use the word tools. You know, fight your way to the thing or get your way to higher aid. For us, that first aid kit in the skate park, it's pretty obvious somebody's going to get hurt in a skate park, right? It's it's a bit easier to have it there and then get to the car.
Good chance. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, I think there's, we'll see. But I think platforms like this will start getting used more and more as we get away from wearing uniforms and more. Unfortunately, that's happening more and more because our opponents are not, they've kind of wised up to that. So they're trying to blend in with the populace and stuff. And I'm lucky to know some dudes in special operations, and more of them are doing plainclothes stuff in environments that are a little bit less permissive. And so they really need an option where it's very hard to conceal a rifle on your person. You can have it in a backpack, but that's not going to be a fast draw by any means. Yeah,
No.
a loft boulder's cool. Having something on you you can quickly engage. I think we'll start seeing kind of more platforms like this. We got to meet the owner of B&T. I'm not sure if you know those guys at SHOT Show, but they've been making sub guns forever.
Right.
And we're very like-minded in that way. I think there's going to be a continual progression. If you're using 9mm, why the hell are you using like a big, like PCC, something that looks like it's basically the size of an AR? Like, what are you doing? It makes no sense. Use 300 blackout. Use an AR. If you're going to have the disadvantages of 9mm, make it something you can fit in your pants. So that's kind of our like design mantra, or our overall like outlook on this situation.
Yeah, awesome. That's really interesting. You are in an interesting time over there in the USA with what's going on with so many people flooding your country, military age males as well. But
yeah.
I was thinking back to the unit you've got there. You know, when we carried concealed, it'd be a baby K. Which is just two hands, and there was not many of us qualified to do that, to take headshots with a machine gun with two hands like that with no shoulder stock. And
pushing out against like the
The bungee.
You're basically, yeah, pushing it out against the bungee, which is kind of interesting. It's an opposite of a stock, really.
Yeah.
But it seemed to utilize somewhat well.
Yeah, but compared to that, they're just smaller, more effective, and even the other one you showed as well, just seems like such a much more smart option.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think it'll be interesting. We, if you don't want to have it in your pants, you can actually. We have a. I wish I had it here, but we're developing a shoulder rig harness, which is funny because things are cyclical. So those were cool in the 70s and 80s, and now that cool again because it's something you know, you can have you know, a suit coat on,
Yep.
not be appendixing, have that underneath your arm. That's what Secret Service used to do with their MP5Ks.
Yep.
And this is a lot thinner, a lot smaller, and a lot less heavy than that
Yeah.
system with more rounds on the gun, which is kind of funny.
Now, before we started recording, you showed me another. I think you showed me an AR platform as well. And then can we talk about the websites that you have these on as well?
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for bringing that up. I don't have it connected right now. I need to put some more batteries in it. Should have been more
Yeah.
prepared. This is the scope switch. So if you can see that, essentially you have an LPVO mount that is motorized and allows you to remotely adjust your magnification level using this button. So
Wow.
we realized, I came up with the idea when I was hog hunting, because as soon as you open up, obviously they just scatter in every direction. And
Yep.
if you're coming back on your rifle, do that, and you try to re-engage, like they're already gone. Like you lost that opportunity for a second shot. So some guys tend to not zoom in as far so that doesn't happen to them, but it's helpful to zoom in for obvious reasons. So we wanted an instantaneous zooming in and out feature. That's what Bill Rapier actually, like we were talking to him. He's like, hey, we were looking at doing something like this in the command. We were never able to figure it out while he was a recce team lead. And yeah, things just progressed. We've been working on this system for a long time. I think it'll be interesting to see how well it's received. I can tell you that everyone who shoots it is like, gives you a little like, it's like a kid in a candy shop. They're like, holy fuck, this is like Call of Duty all of a sudden. Like it's just instant zoom in and zoom out, and you end up using your scope way more. I feel like in the past 5 years, maybe guys have just been using 1x and 6x or 1x and 8x. They don't
Yep.
really use anything in the middle. So why are we even like using LPVOs? They're heavy. You should be using a red dot and a 6x magnifier, which they have now. If you want to be able to zoom in and out very quickly and use an LPVO, you should be able to have control from a firing position. So no more, you know, like I'm coming back here, I'm doing this, my gun dips because I got
Yeah.
a suppressor on it. You know,
Horrible.
yeah. Obviously shit's getting heavier at the end of our guns. So you're just here, zoom out, and then it's just becomes very intuitive to use. Yeah, it's a cool little system. We are using actually USB-C cables made by Unity Tactical. This one is not one. Gotta get that guy working. But I think that's kind of the future of cabling as well. You could look at like the crane cables. I don't know if you use those on your pecs when you were in, or like the Surefire light cables.
Yep.
They're so proprietary, and you're not transferring power necessarily. Whereas a USB-C, that's a militarized USB-C that's very strong and can withstand elements and austere environments of water. That can transfer power, data. So where we're going with this system is you won't need this battery. You'll just need the light head. So you're going to be plugging your USB-C into just the light head to keep the weight down on the front of the gun. And you're powering it with the scope switch, which is also a battery bank.
Right.
So there's two 18650s in there. We knew that guys wanted to power their thermal clip-ons and their night vision clip-ons remotely, because usually those only have a CR123 and it lasts like an hour and a half on sometimes. So actually it was interesting to see, we in the Ukraine conflict, there's photos of guys who have like strapped batteries to the stock. the upper, just trying to
Wow.
like come up with any kind of solution so they don't have to be constantly trading out CR123s.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, anyway, so it's a cool concept. Basically, you can plug it into any of the 4 USB-C inputs. You can charge your gun in the wall, which is kind of funny. It's weird.
Yeah.
You literally just put it up in an outlet. If you got a USB-C cable, that'll charge the internal batteries. You can always trade them out if you need to. But we'll see. I mean, we had a manual version of this that we launched first. The problem was you kind of had to move your hand back and forth. It can be good if you want to stay super lightweight. Obviously, this has a motor in it and it's a battery, so it's going to be heavier. But yeah, man, I'm really excited about some of the future projects and future products that this will allow. I think electronics, if done correctly, can really enhance the lethality of the shooter. We've learned from the Ukraine conflict too, like you don't want to be emitting anything with those electronics. So although this has a computer in it, there's no way to hack it. There is no way to get into the Bluetooth or whatever, or anything like that. Any kind of radio signal that you're emitting can be used against you. And
Yeah.
there's return to sender shit over there. So it's not emitting anything, which is great. If your system stops working, you can always just go back to the old school way of throwing. You're not going to like it. You're going to
Yeah.
hate it once you have the system, because it makes it so easy. But you can always go back to manual adjustment.
So, ARIUS, I originally got you on to talk about tourniquets, and I had a relative angle on that. And then before we started recording, you started showing me all these toys, and I'm thinking back to my primary was a MP5 SD, and I shot iron sights all the time because of when you're so close, and we would shoot for the mouth. And for the listeners and the viewers, our job was hostage rescue. We shoot for the mouth because it takes out the brainstem, and the person can't pull a trigger, press a button, or jam a knife. Any of those things, it just stops all motor function. So the aim off with the aim point was a bit trickier for me. I'm a pretty basic guy, so I just went iron sights on that. Our AM4s had different toys on them as well. But what a difference you've come up with. What got you into this stuff? Because my first question was, what got you into tourniquets? But is this what you've done? I mean, you've got some groundbreaking things there.
Thanks, dude. That's nice of you to say. I don't know. We just love guns here. Like I grew up, like some of my earliest memories are like building Lego guns. I don't know if my parents didn't let me have like play guns as a kid or something like that, and so I was just like suppressed, and I needed to like make my own guns. But yeah, it really was like building Legos, like building an MP5 out of Legos when I was like really young. My business partner is the exact same way. I wish he was here. He's half of everything we do. He's a great designer as well. Ben is probably a little bit more the engineering side. In CAD, I mess around on CAD a lot too, but not to that extent. I'm kind of more of the idea overall. Hey, what if we did this? Like, why is it done this way? And I think maybe my brain just works that way. I think if God gave me any gift, it was just like seeing the world a little bit different and questioning why things are the way that they are. And maybe I'm just autistic, or I have no idea, man. But I enjoy looking at something like, why do we do it that way? And I think that's why like most of my heroes are people that are on your show.
Right.
Like I was just, before we got on, I was just looking through all the guests that you've had, and I relate to those dudes. Not because I at all am a good shooter, or I'm definitely not a physical specimen, and I've done way less cool stuff in my life, but I love their creativity and like looking at a problem that needs to be solved and saying like, wait, why are we doing it this way? Let's fix it this way. Dom on his podcast, he just talked about Eddie, his best friend, who literally created a bunch of like interesting breaching techniques on the fly, like because they had to come up with a solution in the moment. That's really cool to me. Like I love the creative aspect of this stuff. Like I don't know, I just think there's probably something in the water here in Utah. Like, we love our guns. Like, this is the home of John Browning. Have I wish you could see, but over there I've got a big mural of John, and that guy is still probably the most prolific firearms designer of all time. Hundreds of patents. Literally, like, his stuff is still being used today, which is
Yeah.
crazy because he's developing it for World War II, and like, we're still using the Modus. It's insane. And there's a community here that I love, because in Utah you got Browning, but you also have probably six, I don't know, maybe less than that, of the main suppressor companies in the world here in Utah.
Wow.
So we get to interact with these people. Silencer goes down the street, Dead Airs, not too far away from where like Jack Carr lives in Park City, and all these guys are really innovative people. So I'm just trying to be like them, honestly, and like play catch up, because there's a lot of people in the industry that are doing some amazing things and aren't afraid to innovate. I think we need more of that in the country as a whole. People just trying to push the boundaries, even if they honestly, like, a lot of our stuff gets made fun of, like the first time we put it out, because it's
Yeah.
so different that they're like, that must be a gimmick. Cool, man. Like, go shoot it, try it. And then
Yeah.
over time, it usually turns into something like, oh, this is a serious tool and some serious people are using it.
Yeah.
And that's really rewarding to me, is to, haters can hate, but you just like, keep pushing forward and keep innovating. Yeah.
As one guest
Sorry, that was a long.
said, no, it was a good explanation. And I asked that open question. One of the guests, a quote that I did enjoy from him, but Andy Stump, who we spoke about, we had a great chat about that dude. But one of the things he said that was good was iron sharpens iron. And, being surrounded by those like-minded people where you are, it clearly shows.
Oh man, like, I wouldn't say it's competitive here, but maybe it is, like, in a like fun kind of way. Like, we'll go over to Silencer Co. and they're like, "Go check this new can out." We're like, "What the fuck? Like, how did they do that?" Like,
It's kind of like SF
or
world though, ARIUS. It's competitive but collaborative, but competitive for
yes,
the end result. Like we're all going to win. It's yeah, you win, I win.
it's almost like pushing your. It's almost like I watched a documentary on Michael Jordan. He's almost like competing against his own teammates because they're pushing him to be better, kind of thing. And like, he's just so competitive that like, you're almost competitive against your teammates, which is kind of a funny thing. But I think that's probably something in special operations that happens a lot within the teams.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know, you would know way more about that than I would. But there's definitely that in the industry too. Like, we're super happy when we see people innovating and doing crazy stuff with 3D printing and suppressors, and man, fluid dynamics. That shit is way beyond us. But we're like so stoked to see those guys doing it and seeing cans get smaller. And same thing with lights. There's this whole new. There is a young aspect of. I would say there's some younger firearms accessory designers that have come up solely because of one man. And this is kind of interesting. You should follow him on Instagram. His name is Robert Collier. And this guy has pioneered MJF 3D printing.
Oh wow.
What that is there's some aspects of the Raider that are still 3D printed. You can't tell. They look like a molded part. And we only mold the parts that need to actually be molded for strength. This guy has allowed people that we never took out a loan. Like, we had no money to start this company. We just like bootstrapped it. And you could never do that in the past because a mold is typically $100,000 for one
Wow.
mold. And if you mess it up, you're fucked. Like, you're never,
Wow.
that mold is done. You can't change it. And so if you had an idea like this, there's just no way you could honestly make it
Yeah,
feasible
just
and
be a
happen.
drawing. Yeah.
This is probably the 100th iteration of this concept, and we 3D printed all those iterations to get to where we are now. So we change things constantly. So there's a bunch of guys in the industry like HRF Concepts, Emissary Development, 100 Concepts. They're all doing like really cool accessories that are on rifles now that everyone's using, for cable management, for anti-reflective devices, for red dots and scopes. And very legit dudes are using their stuff now, but they're guys that are, in their 20s, early 30s, and bootstrapped a whole company just because they're like, I'm gonna go to Nico and have him print my stuff instead of molding.
Yeah.
So I think it's almost really, I don't know, we would not be around without Nico. So I'm shamelessly plugging him, but also like he's a former Ranger, amazing human being. And if you look at some of the more innovative products that have come out of his shop, you'd be pretty like blown away. Like, wow, that's, if you follow what's happening in the AR market, and stuff like that, you're going to see his stuff pretty much everywhere.
And for the people interested, and it'll be in the show notes, but we'll put it down here. Where do we find that person?
Yeah, Nico. So Neco. Kind of stays a little bit under the radar.
Cool.
And but he's doing a lot of. I don't want to give other companies manufacturers away. I won't mention all the other guys that use them, but there's some heavy hitters too, that have been around for a long time that use them. But I brought him up mainly because it's kind of cool to have this competitive, but team mentality with
Yes.
the Nico boys is what we call them, because there's another like 10 designers all around the nation right now that are doing accessories and doing some cool stuff, and they all use them. So I don't know, it's kind of a interesting little side note.
It's amazing how small a world that is. I mean, you spoke about Slade there, and I've had many people ask me to get him on the show as well. To tie this off, ARIUS, we've gone down for the last half, the military, the operator side, and very male dominated side, and very different than when we started. But what I really loved with Jessica and yourself is messaging. I found this out with self-defense. Self-defense in general is polarizing. People either don't want to know anything about it and they switch off, or they think, or they go the other way and say, my thing's the best, jiu-jitsu is the best, or whatever. But when you get the message from a female, and one I started following was Self-Defense Girl, the message is the same, but it's completely different when a female puts it out. And for the tourniquets, what a clever thing you've done with, and I'll literally read off here, Snake Staff Safety and Snake Staff Systems. You've got a male orientated and a female orientated. And it's just great messaging because, come on, let's be real, mums probably spend more time with the kids. Mums need those things in their handbags. And when they see you or the Snake Staff Systems website, they're like, I don't need that. That's for gun nuts. And I'm using that word very, very generally.
I'm like a bearded guy, and all of our other content is like, here's a tourniquet right next to your gun, your 365. That's going to turn off a lot of people.
Yeah.
We want to save everyone's lives if we can help. Everyone deserves to stop the bleed, not just people who think the way we do.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do have to kind of like change the messaging every once in a while to get people into that world as well. And honestly think that's the best. America's so polar right now, polarized, that sometimes it can take just like a little seed, essentially. So you've got someone who's extremely liberal and hates guns, all this stuff. You can say, well, can you get behind safety? Can you get behind, saving children? Everyone's going to say yes to that. And then they start getting introduced to the world like, oh, okay, there's actually bad people out in this world. There's dangerous situations. That's so intuitive to all of us. That's just how we grew up, and we know that. But it's very different for people living in California or New York or wherever. They're like, they don't see the world that way at all. But if you can introduce them slowly through tourniquets, like, I don't know, I think there is a way to help other people be prepared. Take self-defense seriously, take medical, and then maybe firearms one day, like seriously, like, oh, I get it now. So I think we're trying to sneakily get some people on our side, because yelling at people and saying you're fucking wrong, it's just gonna cement them back into their own way of life, their way of thinking. It doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work on you and I. If a liberal
No.
yells at us, we're not going to be like, yeah, like, cool, you changed my mind. It's not going to happen. You have to you introduce slowly some of these points that everyone can get behind, which is safety.
Yeah, I agree. And Sean Gallagher, a bodyguard of many years, he's coming a show at ARIUS soon. He speaks about self-defense should be taught in schools, just like first aid is. Swimming. So everybody learns to swim, right? At school, because that's probably going to save your life in water. Well, self-defense should be taught.
We don't. It's cool that you do that in Australia.
Oh,
New
wow.
Zealand. We don't do that.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
the parents have to go out and
what an interesting example, you know. So I think, in my opinion, I'm just a guy. It's only my own opinion. You know, swimming, first aid, tourniquets, self-defense. Those things are going to serve you so well, and you never know when you're going to need it. And I love the quote, "Stay ready, so you don't have to get ready." And I think that's part of what you've shown there as well.
That's cool. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, I mean, I kind of, we were just talking about this today, actually. I'm glad that you brought up the swimming thing, because like, why is that not taught in America? That's ridiculous. Like, some kid can go out and drown, and that should be like basic knowledge for every kid, right?
Yeah.
And why our kids are not learning about how to use a tourniquet or how to use any kind of medical device in a gnarly situation? And like, why? Like, that's more important than learning to do, honestly, freaking trigonometry, because you're never going to do that in real life. You're going to use a calculator if it's an important, like, I'm not dogging on. I'm just saying, like, some of the stuff I learned in high school and junior high, I would have rather learned about, like, how to pay my taxes correctly, how to use a tourniquet, these practical things. Sometimes we've gotten away from that in our education system. We need to go back to, like, what's useful, what is going to actually affect you in your life. I wish we would kind of get back to that and stop being out in la la land.
Got to be useful. I'll finish off with a little story for the listeners, and I know it's a long show, but super important, these things we've spoken about, and I hopefully we've got real world examples as well, because it's relevant. I heard the 911 call from a 3-year-old boy. This 3-year-old boy rang 911, so America, obviously, and his dad's sleeping, air quotes. Dad was unconscious. The 911 caller was awesome. I can't remember if it was a he or she, had figured out Dad was unconscious and having a anaphylactic reaction. And the 911 caller managed to figure out that the kid had seen the EpiPen before. Dad had showed him the EpiPen. So great, he's on board, and he was just a bit scared to use it. So the 911 caller got him to use the EpiPen, and then a minute later, Dad comes on the phone, alive and breathing. There's an example of, it's not just for someone else. Literally, your 3-year-old son could save your own life. This stuff we're speaking about is not about sales, and it's not about things that might happen to other people. This could save your own life as well.
Yeah, well, that's a great story to end this off on. That's incredible. Yeah, teach them when they're young. Teach them to use some of these devices. Teach them to know what's what in a first aid kit.
Yeah.
You never know. A lot of the people that always write into us, they're like, I never thought this was going to happen to me. You hear that, it's kind of like a cliche thing to say, but that's how everyone feels. Like, what the hell? Like, I didn't think this was going to happen. And it's got to be an awful feeling to be a father or a mother and not know what to do when your kid's bleeding out. Shit, that would be, I can't imagine the absolute
helplessness,
fear and helplessness of not having a tool at your disposal, or at least not knowing what to do, or at least knowing what to do.
Yeah.
And so some of our marketing is a little fear-based. I'm fine with that, because like if it gets you off your ass, so you take a stop to bleed class, I've done my job.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree. And hey, I've said it so many shows. If one person listens to this show and it helps them in the future or right now, then we've done our job. ARIUS, it
Yeah.
must be amazing to be able to help so many people when the things you've done are there in a different world with the firearm side. But actually to get these messages, I posted one today about something, a message I got back. But those messages they make you know that you're making a difference. So I want to say congratulations to you for what you've done, and very thankful for it as well.
Dude, thank you so much, and it was awesome being on the show. I wasn't joking when I'm saying like all the people on your show are heroes of mine, and thank you so much for allowing me to be on it and share a little bit of my nerdiness.
I love it. I heard the word nerd this morning on an audiobook. It just means smarter than you. So I think you're on point, buddy.
Oh, okay. No, I'm just a nerd.
Hey, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
It's an absolute honor to have you on. SnakestaffSystems.com. We'll put the other ones in the show notes as well. But yeah, just absolutely brilliant to have a chat and to get to know you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. You have a
You're
great
welcome.
night. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator and former Australian police officer, and your podcast host. Please check out my new project at hownottoDieGuy.com, where I teach everything you need to know to both males and females, at-risk populations, schools, kids, and the elderly for self-defense, situational awareness, and all-round skills that every good person should know. Thanks for watching.